Welcome back to another Jazz basketball breakdown. Just got done Jazz versus the Miami Heat. Been a kind of rough road stretch for us.
Rough but valuable.
Yes, yeah.
But first, hold on. Do you hear that? Is that the Dutch national anthem playing again?
Did get a little late to this game because I was busy watching the F1 race. And
pretty sure that's what I'm hearing.
If any of you are F1 fans, you understand his comments completely. It's
all year long. It started again.
Yes, they have a racer. His name's Max Verstappen in Formula One, and it's not even close with him with anyone else.
Anyway, sorry.
We got beat by the Heat, and like you said, it's been a rough stretch, but it's super valuable for our rookies.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like almost like recently every title has to be rookie oriented. Keyonte George, Taylor Hendricks, stuff like that, because we're seeing so much growth from those guys right now. Keyonte George obviously had his struggling moments in this game. You could tell he's exhausted. I don't love playing him 43 minutes at all. But 31, 4-4, and 6 threes made. You could see how this guy, as he continues to develop, can easily step into a star role.
Moments where he grabbed a hold of the game against Miami, who is tough, legit, gritty, lock you down type of group. Coming into the game, we found out that Jordan Clarkson wasn't going to be playing. So I was excited to see what is his usage and how is he going to be able to control the team, get him set up. And it was obvious where early on in possessions on the offensive and defensive side, he's getting people set up, telling them where to go, getting after them. That's your guy. That's your guy.
And Sexton is,
he was still watching. But yeah, that became obvious several times on offense and defense, and telling Lowry, get there, post up, let's get you the ball, let's let him get work, which needs to happen. So
yeah, there,
that was great.
It was either the second quarter or third quarter as it's going down. They start going to run some plays, and he catches the ball, turns to THT. So it was the end of the third quarter. Turns to THT, yells at him to go to the corner, moves Collins, steps back, and yells at Larry Markin to come post up, gives him the ball, go to work. And there are moments where we need to do that, like you said. So seeing his leadership growing, I think it's grown a lot more since Taylor Hendricks has gone into the starting lineup. You can tell he understands the importance of not just his development, but Taylor Hendricks' development. You can see that. You can see he wants success from Hendricks as well. And for a guy like Hendricks, that's super important.
And you can see that it's not just a loudmouth rookie making noise. It's accepted by the team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's key. You have a young group of tough, athletic ballers that are allowed to have a voice, and they know that they're the future of it. That's building blocks, people. That's fun. So I love seeing his leadership. Love seeing the moments where, Terry Rozier's trying to get into him late in the game, kind of bodies him against the sideline. He stays in bounds, crosses through the legs, goes in, makes a tough layup. Big shot after big shot. There were times where, a couple of turnovers, but he kind of, like you said, played too many minutes. He was gassed. But man, the signs are there and incredible.
Yeah.
And you brought up a point, and I'll let you lead into that. That was great that we can discuss about Keyonte.
I did.
And about this last draft. Last draft.
Okay, dude. I got ADHD. Okay.
It has been a whole 10 minutes, but it was you.
So, it was reading through Twitter, and the question was kind of asked to Tony Jones, and kind of give that to you guys as well, is in a redraft right now, where does Keyonte get drafted? And you have to look at what rookies have definitely played better. You mentioned Brandon Miller and Wembanyama when you're talking rookies from the draft. Chet Holmgren obviously as well, but not in the draft. If you're Portland,
number 2 pick.
If you are Portland, and this is nothing against Scoot and what we believe in his future, because we are both still on the side that Scoot Henderson is going to have a great future, just needs development. If you're Portland, do you draft Keyonte George over Scoot Henderson?
At number 2. So that would
Right
be over
now.
Scoot. That would be over Amen Thompson.
Brandon
That
Miller.
would be over Brandon Miller. If they had it to do over again with Anthony Simons and them, they probably would take Brandon Miller. But let's say Brandon Miller's off the board and you're taking a point guard. Do you take Scoot? Do you take Amen Thompson? Do you take Asar Thompson, who many thought had point guard abilities? Anthony Black?
Or Keyonte George.
Or Buffkin, who also went before Keyonte George? That's a question right there. That's for real. And to see in the signs and everything and what he is right now, I think that there are a lot of Portland fans that would take him.
Yeah, it is a hard argument for me right now, where I've been able to see every single game, to see how this kid, reacts to positive and negative things, to see how he works and develops, and the way other teammates love him and stuff like that. Being able to see that stuff, where I obviously don't see any of that, for the most part, that stuff with any of the other players. It is a hard argument to tell me that I wouldn't draft Keyonte George second behind Wembanyama right now.
And there's a comparison out there I've been thinking about, and I'm not saying he's that player, right? You always have to make those freaking statements. But the way that Keyonte can play on ball and off ball, but you prefer him to be on the ball because of how he affects it so much. I mean, you look at the way Steph Curry can do that, and it's an exceptional Hall of Fame, one of the top players in NBA history type of level, where he can play both roles, and it makes it so that he can have another guard, a high-level 2 guard come in and have some usage on the ball and still be effective off the ball, and then also have his moments on the ball. That's rare. You don't get that a lot. Going into the draft and looking at players, I liked a couple of players that were really heavy on-ball presences of directing and getting the team going, but we're not good off the ball. And so this, with Keyonte being able to have both sides, is extra. And Tony Jones brought up the point of if he had gone to Baylor and not been kind of pushed to the 3 guards. So there were 2 seniors that came back for Baylor that were guards. Mm-hmm. Flagler and Cryer are their last names. High-level guards for Baylor. And they basically ran the 1 and the 2, and Keyonte was pushed to the 3. If he would have came in like he thought and had the control of the ball for Baylor that year, because those 2 were considering bouncing out and transferring or entering draft. If he would have gone in there and ran the 1, he wouldn't have been available at 16 to us.
I agree. I completely agree. I still think the comparison of what I think his ceiling is, that very first video that I talked about, I still think, to me, is exactly what you can see him developing into, which is a playmaking Devin Booker.
And that's in Devin Booker's game in the last year and a half, where he's broke through to a whole new level.
Yeah.
Of not just being a scorer, but a playmaker, like you said, and directing
and that's obviously the absolute hope, right, of what I think his ceiling could be. Mm-hmm. Is a ball hand, legit ball handler, playmaking Devin Booker, which, oh my goodness, I would take that any day of the week.
That's doing okay.
But yeah, man, it's been awesome to see the development of him, and it's why last game we discussed this a little bit, last video. It makes so much sense to me to start Chris Dunn next to him, especially this game. You don't have Clarkson, you don't have your scoring punch off the bench. Move Sexton to your bench, and start Chris Dunn next to Keyonte George, and see what happens.
Right. And that was even with Sexton having a good offensive game as far as converting in the lane more than he usually does. Mm-hmm. And even with that, we get that. I still think it's the correct move that you have Chris Dunn here on out, starting in the starting lineup. And let
I think that doesn't just
thing off the bench.
That doesn't just help Keyonte George. That helps Taylor Hendricks. That helps freaking Larry Markin.
Spacing for the entire court, let's be honest.
It is really frustrating. There's a lot of times where certain plays can't happen when a guy like Sexton, Clarkson, Tucker are on the court, because as the play's developing and the pick and roll happens or whatever, and Keyonte will go to make a move, Sexton's just kind of like running up, just like, I'm here. I'm ready. You know,
Ball.
and so his guy's there, and you really like you said, the spacing just falls apart, and then you'll see Keyonte just kind of like, okay, and tossing the ball and move out of the way, and then you just watch Sexton or Tucker for this game just put their head down, dribble, hope something happens, and it's just like, oh my hell.
One thing that I mentioned during the game is difference between our team and Miami. Like many things, right? But one of the things that really stood out was the way that Miami intentionally screens and moves off the ball. They're such a better screening team than us. I mean, on ball, off ball, all different parts of the court. And that's why their play translates so well to the postseason.
Yeah.
That's not just regular season actions. And whereas our stuff is more, kind of slip screens and everybody's a superhero and and I think that just shows kind of the difference in the coaching down to the details of like Eric Spoelstra with Will Hardy. And we see those same things on defense, right?
That's what I was going to say.
The coaching on defense, you can tell that we do not coach the details consistently because being able to consistently defend, yes, you need athletes, you need defensive-minded players, but you got to have it coached down to the details and consistently. We'll see within one play of kind of a pick and then another back pick and some different screens where Colin Sexton, for example, will read and his movement will be different on each one. And it's just like, whatever I feel is what I'm going to do. And everybody else around him has to react.
Yes.
And he kills everybody.
And a perfect example of that is you can go back into this game in the first half. They run a motion with Rozier's got the ball, Duncan Robinson in the quarter, and I believe Bam comes up to set a screen. Duncan Robinson comes up. Sexton jumps sideways to kind of get through this backside on the screen, which Sexton guarding Duncan Robinson is just a bad matchup in itself. And he kind of jumps awkwardly, and he ends up bumping Keyonte. So then a switch happens, and Collins goes out to the ball handler in the corner. And then Robinson cuts. And because Keyonte's been bumped off by Sexton, and Sexton's now on the outside, Robinson cuts, it makes sense for Keyonte to stay with him. So Keyonte goes with him. Sexton then turns and runs back to him, and there ends up just being a wide open elbow three. You can see Keyonte, that all happened, and Keyonte just turns back to the coaching staff, just like,
yeah, you can see him go like this, like, what in the world?
What am I supposed to do there? And that happens a lot with Colin Sexton. This game, it happened a lot with Colin Sexton and Taylor Horton-Tucker. Their timing of jumping into positions and stuff like that is just so horribly bad. But when you're talking about the details of defense and it not being coached, and my concerns of Will Hardy of a coach is just watch a game and only pay attention to the amount of times we have a guy get caught on a screen, get blindsided by a screen because the communication's not there, or two players get mixed up because the communication is not there. Yes, you need to be able to talk as players and do that and stuff like that. Not everyone does that. In the NBA, very good defensive teams have players on the team that aren't defensive-minded players, but still talk and communicate and work together because it's being coached. It's being consistently worked on and being held accountable for those kinds of things. A poorly defensive coached team is a team that will get consistently blindsided by screens.
Those are one of the signs of it for sure. And because we're not coaching that down to the details, we kind of get whatever, right? Defensive minded teams are about consistency. When you have this kind of a screen, when you have this kind of a show, you do the same thing every time, or at least you're all on the same page of what you're doing for that stretch. That may change as a game plan changes defensively down the stretch.
Because you have to change it as it goes through.
But everybody on the team will understand, okay, in this scenario right here, here's what we're doing. We all know. And then you make your plays within that framework of consistency, right? It's like defense is not about feelings. There's no feelings on defense. Like, oh, I feel like I should do this time. I feel like, right? Sound like Ben Shapiro right now. There's no feelings on defense. Defense doesn't care about your feelings anyway. But that part is pretty consistent. Since the trade deadline, when we got rid of Fontecchio and Agbaji, basically two of our three best defensive players on the team, including Chris Dunn.
I would also even say Olynyk strictly because he was a communicator.
Sure. Sure, he organized somewhat. I think that we really relied heavily on defensive players bailing us out of kind of some bad situations in regular season basketball. That wouldn't work in playoffs. That would get shredded. But ever since the trade deadline and those players have left, a couple of things have happened. We are getting less stops, much less transition moments in games. We are all of a sudden back to walking the ball up a whole ton. And we mentioned it we talked about during this game of how many times is the shot clock at 17 going on 16 seconds as we're just barely getting across the half court line, the timeline there. And that's because we're so much now having to inbound the ball, and it's not transition, it's not quick, because our defensive moments have gone down in as a result of the personnel we have on the team. I think that's pretty evident as far as where our team's at right now.
No, I would agree. And what's funny is you can look at a guy like Larry Markin, who's really struggled since the trade deadline and things like that. Part of that is he just himself, he's in a bad spot mentally as with his game. You can tell he has really hit a rough patch, which happens with even the best players in the world. Mm-hmm. I also think he's not getting really any sort of benefit of the call. Part of it is also the players that you play with. You know, a perfect example is a game like tonight where Tucker, if you've watched our videos at all, you know we're not fans of Tucker, and he gets pushed into the lineup because Clarkson's out, which Clarkson does very similar things as well. But guys like Tucker, Clarkson, Sexton, these guys, the primary ball handlers on this team. Emotion will happen, and a guy will get open from it, and you can count of like, he's open, he's open, he's open, he's open, pass. He'll still be open, and sometimes it'll still turn into assists, which is why you see high numbers of assists. But the rhythm of the play is so horribly just different and thrown off because now our guy is just kind of stagnant. Okay, catch, shoot, that's fine. But when it's in motion, smoothly just bang, 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 catch, shoot, or catch, defense pulls, kick, the motion of the offense moves so much cleaner when we allow Keyonte George, for example, to run the offense. And there was moments even in this game, Sexton being on the court, but Keyonte running the offense where Sexton gets really good looks.
Right.
Because of it, and it even makes Sexton look better and stuff like that, which is why Sexton is a six man. But it's a huge reason why when we get into the offseason, we have to move on from some of these guys.
Yeah. Move on from them, transition them to the backup team. That's a real thing with Sexton. It's something I was talking with you about. It's a real thing with John Collins.
Yes.
That's coming on. But real quick, just piggybacking on what you were saying there, the amount of times that Chris Dunn just gets the ball and flicks it to a player early on as they're transitioning or as they're moving towards the rim maximizes their window. It puts them in such a better situation, exactly like you're saying.
Yeah, we get a lot more shots within the first 10 seconds of the shot clock when Chris Dunn is on the court. But kind of to the point is that's a big reason on why you see a guy like Markin's numbers just fall off.
Right. It's with your guards, it can't be a layup or nothing assist, if that makes sense. You've got to get the ball to your teammate in their window that they can maximize their success. So if you can get the ball, the way that Keyonte can dribble through a pick and roll or get to a little moment and just do a one-handed flick and get them a ball a whole second and a half earlier than a Taylor Horton Tucker type of pass, which is more come around the corner, gather, and then throw it, is worlds different.
Yeah.
You know, same pass to the same person in the same similar location, worlds different.
Dude, perfect example is the last stretch of this game. We have a fast break. Colin Sexton or John Collins is bringing the ball down, which Keyonte George calls for it early. He doesn't give it to him. Keyonte George is still kind of like, let's go. And Collins is just like, I'm bringing the ball up. Finally gets to it, passes to Keyonte George. Keyonte George gets a wide open three out of it, and he misses, and it's like, whoa, Keyonte needs to make that shot. If he gives the ball to him, catch, turn, kick, Keyonte George and Colin Sexton have a 2-on-1 fast break. Keyonte George drives into him, either goes for a layup, kicks it to Sexton, he gets a layup. You probably get a wide open layup out of it. Because he threw it 2 seconds later, you still got an open shot. But one, you forced Keyonte to have to then take a jumper, a 3-point shot in that situation, because that was now the open shot, but the only open shot. It also completely took Keyonte George way different rhythm into the shot, which is why things like that can happen. And so, yes, your big time players need to make big time shots, but you need the right players on the court, and it's why we talked right before this. I want to see Kessler and Taylor Hendricks starting together, because we will consistently say, right, the John Collins trade, we got great value out of it, but
Sure.
John Collins, you can see the more and more as games progress and go, this guy's not a starting player. He's not a guy who can close games consistently.
I like that he can shoot and stretches the court. And man, he's an absolute stud athlete.
100%.
And a great value trade. I would do that trade over again
Yeah.
every damn time. But he's one of the players that we need to, as an organization, look at and determine, okay, when is the best window to move him to a backup role or move him in his contract to another team for as we kind of transition to other players. And that's part of what happens. He's clearly plays his best ball as a 5, as a rim runner, and also forcing the other 5 to get out of the lane and guard him out. Those are clearly his biggest traits. And he's a valuable piece. But as an organization, we need to get to the point of, when is the transition moment for him? When is Taylor Hendricks strong enough that he comes in and makes a good starting pairing with Walker Kessler, if Walker Kessler is our 5 of the future?
And that's a big reason why you need to do that as well. You need to find out if Taylor Hendricks and Kessler can truly play together, but 2, you need to find out if they can play well enough together for that to be a future starting big man rotation, with or front court, with those guys for an actual championship level team.
Absolutely. So, $25 million for a backup here in 3 years. We've talked about it before. That's not that bad of a salary for a high level 6th, 7th guy, first couple guys off the bench play. Those are one of the things that have to happen. It has to, similar thing with Colin Sexton. Like I said, we have to figure out if Walker Kessler is our 5, starting level, defensively, incredible rim protector, absolute monster. One of the top, I would argue, top 3 in the league rim protector, especially if you get him per 40 minutes or per 36 minutes. Yeah, Kessler. Did I say something? Yeah, Kessler. Sorry. So those are some of the things we got to figure out, and I'm sure that's on the mind of the front office as we're going into this offseason. And because the Taylor Hendricks, Walker Kessler pairing defensively, we know will be super strong. Because Hendricks, man, these last couple of games.
I was going to say, the last thing we got to talk about in this game was Taylor Hendricks.
The last couple of games, guarding Paulo Banchero, a whole bunch of times on Bam, who he was frustrating. Jimmy Butler, who he had several good plays on, and then a couple of times Jimmy flexed, which that's going to happen. Jimmy Butler, man, and Paulo Banchero, they're going to get plays down the stretch. They're stud players. But there were times and signs where Jimmy tried to kind of get cute with him and bump him and turn and put up a shot, and Hendricks swatted it back at him.
Hendricks recovers, turns, and blocks it.
Yeah. And in some of the offensive plays too. So
there's early on, Hendricks, Markin loses his guy. It's an easy dunk, and Hendricks from the side jumps up and slaps it off the. Yeah, man, it's that he has had so many shining moments during this road trip defensively, where it's just like, oh my goodness, this guy could be elite. And I think he had 8 points, 13 rebounds tonight, and he is a fantastic rebounder. He's super strong hands. And loves getting to the rim on the defensive side of the court for blocking shots and things like that. He hustles on offense for offensive rebounds. He is every game improving and growing, and it's his growth is exciting of a pairing next to Markin, in my opinion.
And think about how exciting it was. He's from
Florida,
the Fort Lauderdale area, right? So for him and Sensabaugh there to have family and a whole bunch of people there watching, and man, that's exciting. Sensabaugh had a couple of big threes that the first half, but that's The baptism by fire on this stretch, especially for Taylor Hendricks, has been so valuable.
Yeah.
And Keyonte's a couple more steps ahead and shining.
Yeah, you can see that nervousness that Taylor Hendricks was showing, Sensabaugh was showing. You can see that slowly starting to break. You can see that just chipping away, chipping away. You can tell defensively, confidence wise, Taylor Hendricks is up here right now. He truly believes in himself in these defensive matchups against Bam and Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler got a lot down the stretch against him, big time plays. Bam Adebayo, the entire game was just, you could tell, did not want that matchup. He every time that matchup happened, he really struggled against it. He yelling at the refs and everything like that. And Taylor Hendricks did a fantastic job there. And so it is exciting to see where that kid can go.
I was going to say, you even saw the growth during the game. A couple of times early, he would get a stop, pump fake. He'd go up and try and block it, and and they'd go under. Late in the game, we saw a couple of times late shot clock where he stayed down and just contested the shot. Those are things I guarantee you that he's being reminded of when he goes back to the bench. And and even as players, there are moments where they're like, okay, this player's going to do this. He's going to pump fake again. Don't go for it. You're like, yeah. And then you get out there and you jump.
Yeah.
You have to really get in the moment and remember what you're taught and grow in that situation. And you saw the growth during the game, from the first part of the game to the end. So these are golden moments for the youngsters.
Yes.
And a fun stretch to watch. I've loved these games.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been super exciting growth from our young players this game. And another freaking 30 piece for Keyonte George. That makes him the third rookie in Jazz history to have 3 or more 30-point games in their rookie season. And so we struck gold with Keyonte George and the development we're getting out of all of our rookies right now. This is what we are hoping for at the start of the season, but what we're finally starting to get. And it's been great for Jazz fans, if you really, in the organization, if you really believe in us being able to make a championship run in the next few years. If you're okay with the mediocrity 4-3 seeds and maybe getting to the second round of the playoffs, you're hating this right now. But if you truly want to see an NBA championship with this Jazz team, these are invaluable freaking end of the season of what we're actually going to see and what growth and what it can turn into.
Here.
So overall, let us know what you guys think. It was an awesome game. If you guys are Formula One fans, let us know if you even understood what Sean was talking about at the beginning of this game. But either way, thanks, guys.